Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have another exciting guest, RCV STL. STL stands for St. Louis. So welcome to the podcast, RCV STL.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good to be here.
We're glad to have you. So let's get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself. Give us your names kindly and also a brief biographical sketch.
All right. I'm Austin Brown. I'm the director of STL RCV, and by trade, I'm an engineer. And then we've got Brad over here.
I am Brad, and I work with Austin on RCV, and I am also an engineer.
Interesting. It's awesome that you have a full-time job and you're also giving stuff to this cause. So I'm interested, does your engineering in any way relate to politics? Do they overlap in any way, or is it two separate spheres?
I'd say it overlaps in just kind of the mentality of problem and solution approaches, of saying, we see an issue and we see a solution in RCV, which is why we've chosen to, pick up this path.
Yep, and I don't think either of our jobs want us interacting with politics necessarily, but we do problem solve every day, so that's something we like to do.
What type of engineers are you guys?
We're both mechanical.
Mechanical, okay. All right, interesting. So kindly tell us what in your life path led you to RCV activism?
Well, I guess I can answer that because I'm actually impassioned by a lot of different causes, but every cause I encountered a reflective representation kind of problem, lack of, if you would say. Just for example, here in Missouri, right to work has been they've been trying to bring right to work back to our state, and 2/3 of Missourians have shot it down repeatedly, but it keeps coming back, and that's majority because we don't have reflective representation. So I started looking around for RCV groups, and there weren't any in our area, so I went ahead and started one.
And yeah, along those lines, me and Austin went to school together, so we spent a lot of times kind of talking about politics and how we thought, what kind of the source issues are. And when he said he was going to start an RCV group, I joined in.
Sounds great. So kindly tell us what the responsibilities of your roles are. I heard you say you're a director, so kindly tell us what a director does in your position.
Okay, so as director, I do a lot of branching out to the other groups around Missouri, talking to them, seeing what they're doing, how can we help, how can they help us, that kind of thing. And I also kind of give jobs to the volunteers and kind of guide them in the best path.
Interesting.
And, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just kind of responding to, my role of, I guess my role is more media team oriented in terms of approaching and kind of getting the word out there to various groups, either through public events, social media activity, and through that kind of just trying to get the word out there and getting people talking about RCV. And so that's kind of more of my role in the hierarchy of it all.
Sounds good. So kindly tell our audience what RCV is. We have done other podcasts in RCV, and our audience is interested in alternative parties, so many of them are probably familiar with it. There may be some people who are new to the podcast who have not ever heard of RCV or not very familiar with it. So kindly give a brief overview of what RCV is.
Sure. Well, we all know about how the standard system works. Essentially, you've got that list of, a certain number of candidates, and you fill in the bubble for that one candidate that you want to vote for. Whereas with RCV, you rank all the choices you want, so you can vote for as many or as few of these selections as you would like, and you rank your choices, saying, this is my number one, this person would be my number two if the number one doesn't get enough votes, and on down the list until your vote applies to the last person to end up in the election, either them being the winner or essentially the runner-up in that regard. And so RCV in that process is kind of an instant runoff election style, so that anytime somebody doesn't reach a majority of the vote, the votes for the candidate that got the least votes are transferred over to the voter's second choice. So they're automatically redistributed to the next candidates on down the list until a majority candidate is found.
That makes sense. So what would you say are the advantages of RCV?
Well, the advantages of RCV is, based on the statistics of what we've seen so far, there's already a much greater turnout due to a stronger feeling of representation with the candidates that are on the field. It encourages choosing your first choice, not your safe choice, since, the worry of voting for somebody that really speaks to you but may not have the biggest audience will kind of be a source of hesitation with voters, whereas RCV completely removes that hesitation, so you can fully pick and commit to your first choice. And so it also eliminates runoff elections, which are a separate clunky setup, separate process in the current system, whereas with this one, it's integrated into the process flow automatically, so it's much more efficient. Also in this is that RCV, the candidate that wins has to have a true majority, not just, the largest number of votes out of all the candidates in the current pool, because sometimes that can be as low as 30%, and that person is still considered the winner. And so in that regard, it is more efficient and more representative of the voting public. Along those lines, it also eliminates vote splitting, which is the worry of saying the candidate that I want to vote for is flipped over, has a split off over into the independence category, and the worry of saying that if I vote for an independent, the Democrats or Republicans, the ones that I kind of favor the party of, will lose power from my vote being transferred over to an independent. So that's kind of a vote that works towards, quote unquote, the other side. And so the worry of splitting that off is mitigated through ranked choice voting. And this design is also a lot more resistant to gerrymandering because it is less dictated by those boundaries. And it also more so encourages civility. And so there's less negative ads, less mudslinging, and less kind of, flashy showmanship and more substance, because it definitely becomes more about the issues that are important to you. And, definitely further examples beyond that.
Well, those are a lot of big benefits for RCV.
Absolutely.
So what do
that's why we like the system.
Excellent. So what do people say in opposition to RCV? What arguments do people say against it, and how would you counter those arguments?
Well, there are a lot of the kind of common go-to answers, questions of worries about complexity or cost or exhaustive balloting, that there's too many candidates on the list. And so these can be pretty easily addressed just as following. It's like, say, with the worry of complexity of, having a ranked choice voting system. It seems like it's too complex, but we do this all the time in groups of, simpler systems. Like, say, a group is trying to choose where they want to go eat food, or like, say, the vote of, pizza versus burger versus pasta and says, well, my first vote is this. It's like, well, nobody else wants to do that, so what's your second choice? Oh, I'll go with burgers. Okay, everybody else likes burgers. Burgers win. That notion of it's a very straightforward system if you just kind of stop and think about it, as well as it's kind of in play with, the show like America's Got Talent, where the panelists get to choose their first choice, then their second choice if that one doesn't win, and on down that list. The other qualm I mentioned was cost. The worry that, implementing a new system is going to cost money, and people would say, I don't want to spend my taxes on something that I don't know if is going to help. And so the worry of that is really misplaced. And so, like, for example, Cary, North Carolina saves $28,000 each year by using RCV because the eliminations of runoff elections and other issues that basically slow down the entire process. Another example is that Maine found that it costs just over $100,000 for the whole state to implement, and that's less than a penny for each taxpayer. And based on the list of previously, pros for the RCV line, I'd say that's a pretty good investment. As well as the other option that's kind of a stated strike against RCV is the worry about basically a crowded ballot. And this really isn't really an RCV problem, because there's already that worry nowadays. Because you look at a primary election and people may go down that list and say, I don't know who half these people are. And so while RCV is not directly designed to address this issue, RCV does not make this problem worse. So it's not really a knock against RCV. And so, however, it is kind of designed to be something that inherently combats this worry of an overstacked ballot, because with RCV, it encourages you to actually, research your candidate to know who actually speaks for you. And so I know there are some other arguments against it, but after a certain point with RCV, it becomes less about RCV and more about voting in general. And so, yeah.
That's good to hear that RCV doesn't cost that much money, and it can save money in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So how does St. Louis receive RCV voting? How do people respond to your proposals in your area?
Well, we've had a variety of different types of responses. I would probably say 80% right after we explain it to them, they're like, that sounds like a good idea, which is great on our book. And then we also have the few people that are like, bringing up some of these concerns, and some people just cannot be swayed no matter what.
So those 80%, are they in different political groups? Is it mostly independents and alternative party people, or does it also include some of the two-party people?
So we've actually seen it all across the board. We've had libertarians come to us and say it's a good idea. We've had Green Party members come to us and say it's a good idea. We've had Democrats, and actually I think it's Alaska, right, that has it throughout the state, completely red state. So it's pretty accepted across the lines if someone's, willing to fight for something they want, right?
That's good. You have a broad base of support, it sounds like. So what types of activities does your organization do to advance RCV?
Well, we do focus, our group primarily focuses on education, generally
Okay.
through the social media domains and public events. Like we put together an event during the last election cycle where we were outside polling places, and just basically talking to the general public about, people coming through saying, how'd you like how you voted this time? Would you like to hear about a system that could work better? And through just kind of, general public outreach through those mediums, we try and, educate the public. We also reach out to representatives in more formal channels, like through, direct contact with our representatives and that kind of thing. And then, we also work with other groups in the area like Mo RCV as well as other groups in Kansas City, and is how to best implement it in Missouri as a whole.
Sounds good. So for implementing RCV, how do you want to do that? Do you want to do that by each city, or do you want to do it at the statewide level? We talked about different people have different approaches. Some want to do a statewide thing. Some want to do a city by city level. What's the optimal way, do you think, to implement RCV if there is an optimal way?
So what we found is there's three main ways to get something like this across the finish line. One is initiative petitions, which is a whole bunch of signatures, and the larger the area, the more signatures. Then there's legislation for state or county-wide, and that involves going to the Congress people, putting pressure on the Congress people to make the change, and that comes with its own hurdles. Then there's what you were talking about, city level elections, where you have to speak to the election officials. So the city level, it can vary a lot because each city has a little bit different way of doing things. So that is a way. You just have to get real familiar with those election officials. And then there's the state or county wide change. That's one of the reasons we work with Mo RCV, Better Ballot KC, and we're even starting a Southwest Missouri branch in March to try to get everybody on the same page. The ultimate goal, let's get it all the way to the state. Then we can start working on a national, right? But that's the goal. And then there's initiative petitions. And there is a few petitions that we have found spread out amongst Missouri of different ways people have interpreted the writings for RCV, and none of those are ours at the moment, aside from Better Ballot KC did a petition drive recently. And you just have to get a lot of signatures. So there's a lot of prep work that you have to do. So you have to get a large base of people that will, fill out your volunteer sheet and say, yeah, I'll sign the petition once it comes through. Because then we have to go get them. We have to go get a whole bunch of signatures. So we're doing kind of all three at the same time, and basically first one to the finish.
It sounds like a good approach. You're experimenting. You're seeing what works best, and whatever it takes, you roll with. That sounds like what you were saying earlier about your engineering background, how you use that to look for solutions to problems. It sounds like you're doing it in an analytical way to make sure you got the best ends.
We definitely do our best to approach this in an analytical and procedural manner.
We actually have a lot of engineers within our group. Just in STL, we have at least 3 engineers. I know Mo RCV has at least 3 in the STEM field. I think some of them are like comp sci. And Kansas City, I think Kansas City is the only one that doesn't have an engineer like that I know of. So we actually are spread out.
Interesting. So what cities in the nation have RCV? If there's any in Missouri, kindly note those. If wherever else there is, kindly note those.
So I think we mentioned Cary, North Carolina. They have it. Maine has it. Alaska has it. I'm sure I'm missing some. California, the district that is in San Francisco, that district has it. there's a whole bunch. It's just hard to keep all of them in my head.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
That's good. There's more than you can think of. Awesome. So our audience out there, whether they're in your area in St. Louis or they're elsewhere, how can they support your organization?
Well, we have. You can reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter. We also have a website, stlrcv.com, where you can learn more. You can ask us questions. You can sign up to be a volunteer. And some of those questions could be, if you're not in the area, we can direct you to Fair Vote, which is the national organization. We do have some contacts with Nebraska and one other that escapes me right now. But we can help direct you to wherever the one is for your area.
Sounds good. Gentlemen, thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today and sharing the exciting information you have about RCV and the exciting things that your organization is doing.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time as well, and I wish you all the best in your personal endeavors and also in your organization as a whole.
Thanks.
You as well.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.